What's happening? My name is Blake Harris, and this is the Music City Mindset. The Music City Mindset is found on all platforms everywhere underneath the Nashville Fit Network, and we are very, very grateful for that, especially on days like this. We have a show lined up. It's going to be a flavorful show. One that's going to make you feel like you're in paradise, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I am also grateful that I am not here alone. Co-owner of Spontaneous Beauty and has had art pieces featured all around the world. Someone that I once described as the human version of the check engine light staying on. My best friend for 3 decades, Evan Butler.
Oh yeah, what's up, man?
What up, dude? All right. I was thinking a lot about this, especially with who we have today. I was in a big, huge Airbnb, and I was trying to do some work. And I was around some not creative people, and I'm not making fun of them. They just don't.
Yeah.
They're not creative in their jobs and things like that. And it got me thinking about creativity because I was having to work a little bit harder in a very distracting environment of a bunch of people partying and things like that for a wedding. So it became very evident that you can very much kill or dampen what creativity you have. You can end up in a writer's block, whether it be sculpture, art, lyrics, whatever. We all can wrap our head around that. But does that mean that creativity, if it can be dampened or killed, can it be created? Can it be born from nothing? Or do you have to be born with creativity? And if you've gone through any type of block, how did you get yourself out of it?
Born with it. It's kind of like leaders. Leaders are born, they're not made. No matter how much you try to turn somebody into a leader, same way with creativity. Now, if you feed that creativity and it blossoms, that's one thing. I mean, there's some creative people that have probably never pushed their limits or boundaries. 100%. They may do this or that. It might be how they decorate their apartment. But no, I believe you're born with it. I mean, I've seen a lot of people that had great art talent and a lot of people that wanted to draw or paint or this or that. And if you don't have it, you can learn technique, but there's an it factor, just like with music.
Absolutely, 100%. People who sing in the shower but don't realize they're singing off keys because they don't have a natural ability to understand that they're not singing in key. And it's really just a thing you have or you don't have. You have people who can take pictures, and then you got photographers. Something about the way two people can hold the same exact camera, point at the same thing, but for some reason this dude's picture just has something about the way he did it, and it's a natural God-given thing. There's no way around it. And like he said, you can build on it if you're lucky enough to have some people around you that can push you and recognize it. That's really the key. When
it's not just flowing and this is my natural thing, like how do you spark creativity? How do you get through a block of any sort? Is there certain techniques?
Sometimes you can't get through the block, but I always tell people that, like, I will not go in the studio and I will not make beats if I don't feel like it. Like, you can't, when people just kind of like want you to do it on the spot, like, hey, Sonny, make another $1. What are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's just not, you can't just pull it out of your ass, what I mean? But so you just got to feel it. And then also it has a lot to do. Yeah. And it also has a lot to do with who you're working with. For example, if Yellow Wolf was the rapper you were making a beat for, it's endless, the possibilities that you can do with the beat.
Right.
So if you understand, you know what I mean? Like certain people you work with, you're a little limited. So you're kind of in a box a little bit, but then when you get that one artist, it's wide open. So I would think it's the same thing maybe with art.
Yeah, that's why collaboration works so well for me, is when you get another artist involved or you bring somebody else in that's creative, it sometimes sparks your creativity. But when I've hit those blocks or those moments, sometimes it's just a drive down a back road. Sometimes it's a vacation. Sometimes it's something small.
Yeah.
It might be something my kid says that's like all of a sudden.
I'll be putting stuff in my notes all the time.
Absolutely.
Like some weird comment or something, but yeah. And, I feel like it's something that that chooses you almost in a way. Like no matter what I try to do, I always feel like I get pulled back into this arena. I've had moments where, I've taken breaks or I felt like I needed to give up or, and for some reason, it's just this tug or things happen in the universe or the timing or my son being in music now and, pulling me back in from that standpoint or, opportunities that just seem to be popping up lately. They're just like right there.
What's funny about it, because I feel like deep down, I haven't really done a lot of things with true art of creativity until this outlet of the podcast.
Yeah.
And now it's like, when I get the ideas, when I get the outline, when I get the script, when I get that's
creative,
going,
man.
Sometimes it hits me at times where it's like, this is really inconvenient to have this idea right now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one with a full note section.
Just when you lay down and you're like, I need a good night's sleep, and that idea pops
Yeah.
There's been many nights I've sat in my kitchen or something till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and all I'm doing is like sketching out an addition on my house I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford to get. You know what I mean? Like, that's what my sunroom will look like, and I'm drawing it. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing, dude? I need to go to bed.
Well, that makes me feel good that we have a lot more in common with how we dream and things like that. For all of you that are listening along on more of the Spotify, iTunes, you might not recognize that voice. If you're watching along on YouTube, I would hope that you would recognize the face. If you don't, I don't know where you've been for the last 3 decades. This man is a certified legend. He built his legacy building up some of Cashville's finest as the founder of Street Flavor Records. Pivotal for establishing any kind of hip-hop scene here in Nashville. He's worked with people like Cool Daddy Fresh, Worm, Pistol, Top Dollar, Lex, Bravo, Charlie P.S. I wrote it down. Haystack, Young Buck, Struggle Jennings, Jelly Roll, just to name a few. His work began in 1991, paving the way for what Southern hip-hop would look like then and is still contributing today. He has acquired over 1 million independent records sold, 3 gold records, and a platinum as a mixing engineer. We keep them coming. Street Flavor. Sundog, quit fucking around with the beat. Welcome to the show, Sonny Paradise.
Thank you.
It ain't music unless Street Flavor produced it.
Oh, God. I don't know about that one, but it's,
I mean, the list goes on, man.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm sorry that it took me so long to get here, but this was the one I wanted to do. I loved what you guys were doing, and I was like, I need to do this one for sure.
That means a lot.
That means so much.
I mean, it was like, some people are doing this realm, and it comes off a little contrived almost like it's too set up or something, but you guys are very natural. It works. I like it.
It may be our inexperience.
And cut. No, that was all we needed for a show today.
No, but seriously, I mean, it comes across really good, and that's why I really wanted to do this. And you guys clearly have been here. You're from here. You guys have dabbled in music in the past. So there's like, I want to talk to people that not just want to ask questions or something. They understand the culture. They've been in Nashville. They're fans of the culture. They're fans of the music that's come through. They're part of the scene, and like, you guys get it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never envisioned that we would have ever had a podcast with a setup like this, but I've been wanting to ask you questions for a long time. So let's get right into it, because we don't have all day. Right. For the people that would be listening to this that know you, they pretty much know a lot of your backstory and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm guessing your love of music, the way you're talking about the natural born given ability to make beats, to write, to things like that, I'm assuming it started at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, like, my dad was a musician, and he was singing songs and stuff like that from the time I can remember.
What were you listening to when you knew you wanted to do music?
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hands down, without any question. Those records, Sugar Hill Gang, all that stuff, like I said, I'm old. So like I not only was I there when it started, I was in the area that it started from.
So were you born in Jersey? I was
born in New Jersey.
Okay.
But you can almost throw a rock in New York. So,
right.
It's, I grew up in the time where, that all came to be, all the Cool Hercs all the way back. And, I was that kid at the roller rink that wasn't roller skating. I was breakdancing in the middle with all my buddies with windbreakers and shit like that. And you know what I mean? Like, I was totally into it. You know what I mean? But I also skateboarded. I was a BMX kid. I played football for 14 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I had this, like, I was a little bit in everything. I loved the Beatles. That was my favorite rock band. Like, I was totally into all that. So I kind of had a good mix. And, my dad was in the mix of a lot of stuff, but at the end of my dad, as a young kid, wanted to be in a band. He wanted to have a guitar store, and he finally got one when he was 70 years old.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? So it's like, I kind of grew up in it, writing songs. By the time I was 13, they all sucked, but I was doing it.
Now, what kind of music was your dad playing?
you know, old school rock and roll stuff. You know, that was his thing. You know.
Now, of course, we all read the Tennessean article and the penny slot story.
Oh yeah.
And then basically, as soon as he got out of prison, y'all moved
February of '91. We moved down here. So, you know, basically, just to give a quick thing, my dad went to jail for 5 years when I was 13 for stock manipulation. This is before the Wolf of Wall Street and all that stuff.
Yeah.
My dad's case pretty much set the precedence for George Bush took my dad's case and created the Securities Act of '91 from all the legislation that my dad went to Congress and presented. We just wrote a book about all this, did a documentary. It's going to be available soon. It was the first securities case in American history that had organized crime attached to it. It was the first wiretap securities case in American history. You know, so there's a lot of precedents that was set. A lot of people became attorney generals and judges and stuff out of his case. So when he went to Congress, he went there voluntarily. He didn't go there to get a sentence reduced. He basically said, I want to have one good thing that I could look my son in the eyes, which was me, and say, at least I out of all the crap I did, basically tearing down the securities business, you know what I mean, with the mafia, you know, I could at least look my kid in the face and say, hey, look, I helped do this, you know what I mean? I put this together. So he did. He went to Congress and he basically told them basically how to do everything and what not to do. He created the pink sheets. He created the digital information. He made sure that all penny stock people were licensed. You know, he said, this is what you have to do. So all of that information through his congressional testimony turned into the Securities Act of 1990.
Yeah, they skipped over all that.
Yeah.
Well, and
they skipped over all that and basically said, this is where the government puts your trash.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and they're still in place today, those laws are.
Yes, they are. They haven't changed. So it was the biggest securities legislation since 1933.
Wow.
When the Securities Act first became an act in 1933. So his was the second largest.
Now, 13, that's a hard age to have your dad.
Yes, and me and my dad were tight. And, you know, when he came out, I was kind of like a young man. You know, I was just turning 18. And, you know, I couldn't wait for him to get out of jail. You know what I mean? So it was rough. And because he went to Congress to testify, they basically said, hey, look, someone may try to kill you. You know, we don't know who. You know, his congressional testimony right from the Library of Congress is in the back of the book, word for word. Never testified against anybody, never mentioned any names, never nothing, which is probably why he's still alive. But in case we're like, let's take this ticket to ride, put us in the witness protection program, and wanted to send us to Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're like, well, we don't want to go to Atlanta. We want to go to like somewhere cool where there's like a music scene or something going on. And my dad wanted to like start doing country music or something and be part of that scene, which I really wasn't into. But so we lied and said he had an ex-wife in Atlanta, so we couldn't go there. So they're like, well, where do you want to go? We want to go to Nashville. So
had you ever been to Nashville before?
No. In my brain, I'm a New Jersey dude. Imagine Jersey Shore football player.
Right.
That was me. You know what I mean? The spiked hair, the cut off sweatshirt thing, like boom, bye, yeah. My friends are like, you know.
What year did y'all land here?
February of '91.
Oh my God! So just the scene in Nashville at the time. You're talking about a quarter of the people lived here.
Well, let me tell you, you know, my brain, I thought I was going to land there'd be tumbleweeds and stuff because the only thing I knew about Nashville was Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. You know, I'm from New Jersey. I didn't know nothing. I'm listening to house music and shit like that. I didn't know. And so, you know, but when I got there and the plane was coming down, I was like, oh, there's some buildings. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, this is really, like, this is like a city. Yeah. Like, this is kind of cool. And so, you know, I got here and, you know, it was actually a city and I felt good about it. But it was nothing like I thought in my brain at all, you know.
Yeah. So. There might not have been the tumbleweeds, but
yeah.
Especially in the 90s.
My point to that was 2nd Avenue was boarded up. Mm-hmm. You had the spaghetti factory. Mayor Bulls, I think, was down there.
Yeah.
You know, but really, I mean, Garth Brooks hadn't even popped yet.
Right.
So country music was kind of dead because you had that gap between like when Kenny Rogers was doing all that hit 70s and 80s stuff, and then that big gap, and then Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And then when Garth Brooks hit, Nashville really reignited. and country music really took off again.
Yeah.
And the scene started to really
And
pick
then,
up.
I mean, 90s country just became a
Everything.
dominant
Oh, yeah.
force across, like,
And that's when Nashville really started to change. And,
Yeah.
and you know, my dad was into that. And but you go ahead. You could ask some more questions before.
but yeah, no,
I just
I'm
go on
loving
and
this. I'm loving this, but like,
Yeah. So back to the article and all that
Yeah.
stuff. You know.
But y'all moved here,
Mhm.
and I mean, as we know, you started Street Flavor in '91.
Yeah. So when my dad was supposed to get out of jail 6 months earlier than he did. So I went to school that day. The first time I found out, said, "Peace, fuck you, I'm out of here," you know, and basically walked out saying, "My dad's getting out of jail. I'm out of here." You know,
Yeah.
threw my football scholarship away, everything like down. I was just too excited, you know. And so when I came to Nashville, I had to do a half a year of school at McGavick.
Wow.
Because I said to myself, I was like, "Look, man, I got to at least graduate from high school. Like, I can't be that dude." You know what I mean? Which I probably should just never went. But still. So I finished a half a year here. And
what was that half a year like?
it was crazy, dude. Because,
I mean, it has to be a culture shock coming from Jersey.
Yeah, because I didn't talk like anybody. I didn't look like anybody. I barely understood half of the kids I was hanging out with. And, you know, it was just so different. Like the first party I went to, and you know, with all these kids from McGavick, I mean, the entire house dumped out of there into a big brawl in the middle of the damn front yard. Like, I was like, where am I at and what's happening? But I found like one or two buddies I linked up with, and I'm still friends with them today.
Ooh.
One of them's my baby's godfather. You know, so, you know, shout out John Junkins. You know, so
What was it?
it was a culture shock for sure, though.
What was it about, especially like coming in right before that boom
Half
of 90s?
a year, though, that I did in McGavick.
Yeah.
That's when I came up with Street Flavor. So keep in mind the witness protection thing.
Yeah.
So we came up with Paradise and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Almost like a joke, you know, because we went right back to our names as soon as we got here. So, but we kept that for music and we had Paradise Management. But while I was sitting in school, I was like, how can I use my name and give a record label the same thing? So Sonny, Formato, Street Flavor. And that's when I did the S and the F.
Wow.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
did your dad look over his shoulder? Did he ever feel like?
Dude, we were pretty much laughing at it. We thought it was a joke.
Because that's wild.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the night I got here, I got a bucket of quarters and went down to the payphone. I was calling my girlfriend in New Jersey, my dad. It was really a joke.
The opposite of witness protection is go
You know
start
what's
a
funny
record
is the witness
label.
protection is this: don't tell the 3 T's they call it. Don't telephone, don't telegraph, don't tell a friend.
Mm.
We did all the opposite of all that. You know,
In the first day.
The first day, the first month, they said, don't buy any cars. Don't do any of this. We went and bought an old 84 Buick. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we did everything they told us not to, because they gave you a little like $400 a month allowance or whatever. And we didn't care. My dad was way too smart. And we were way too motivated to just sit around.
He has to be borderline genius to even
he is a genius for real.
Busted for what he did do.
Yeah, I mean, he was again, he was not that it was a good thing, but he was really the originator. Before the Wolf of Wall Street, my dad and that generation of guys are really the ones that wrote the playbook for all of that stuff. I mean, before them, no one was doing it. It didn't exist. And whatever that dude's name is, Belfour or whatever. I mean, this dude's a joke. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know, if my dad called that dude back then, he would have just said, do my deal whether you like it or not.
Right.
You buy the stock whether you like it or not.
What family was he tied
Genovese.
to? Genovese, okay.
And so anyway, that's a part of the story. Like, a lot of people have told my story, and I feel like that's why it's important for me to start doing this now, getting older. You guys have interest in this, and I want to be able to tell the story. And again, it's not that it's cool to do fucked up shit. Can I say that on here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you know, people are a little more desensitized than they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, this when that article came out, we'll get to that, but it pretty much we got canceled. Mm-hmm. Old school canceled, like no distributor. I'll get into that when we get there, but
I mean, we can go ahead and talk about it. I mean, that's early on in things.
Early Street Flavor stuff you want to get into before I get to that? Because that was 95. That was...
Well, I mean, I guess the overlooming question is, like, what was it about Country Music USA that you looked at and said, I want to start hip-hop?
Well, you know, my dad thought I was crazy. and every single person that I talked to said I was crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, that'll never work here.
And when you're setting the scene, it doesn't sound like that's a smart idea.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was a square in a circle. You know what I mean? If you saw me then, you probably would have, you know, I went into 92Q one time and this old dude with a country dude with a beard and everything was like, he's like, to do what? You want to play what? Like, and I was like, so, you know, it was this thing like, they just looked at me like I had three heads. I mean, honestly, like it just wasn't something that anybody at the time thought was possible to come out of Nashville. And there were some rappers around, but there was no rap scene. There was no record labels. There was no radio. There was no support for it. I think 92Q was playing some R&B and gospel. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that was it. So. Yeah.
So what was your game plan going into that? None of that's there. No infrastructure.
I didn't have a game plan. All I knew is that, so we found this little studio in Berry Hill, and there was this old guy with one eye, and he smoked these long brown like cigarette things, and he was kind of on his way out of music, and we were kind of like sharing his studio, and we eventually bought that building, a studio from him. So I had a place to work out of. We were kind of sharing time. We were trying to rent out the studio, make some money for the guy. And we had a little office in that studio. And I put an ad out in the Nashville scene looking for an engineer. And DJ Dev answered the ad.
Divine.
Yeah. So Kevin answered the ad, and Kevin was kind of, you know, he grew up in Nashville, and he was making some beats already in his house and stuff. So he knew Boogie, and he knew some people that were in the scene, and so he was kind of like my little initial plug into.
I forgot about Boogie.
Having some stuff, and but at one point, a guy named Pete and his artist was Pistol came through to rent the studio to record. And through that process, at some point through doing that, we just had the idea to say, why don't we just take this project and actually make it an album and release it? And mind you, I had no idea. I think I may have had Street Flavor Incorporated maybe at that time. I know I had Sonny Paradise Music, the publishing company. I know I had that done already, but I didn't even have my shit together at all. No clue how to pay for it, no clue how to do it, no nothing. But what I did have was, because we had done 4 country albums before I even did a rap project. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did 4 on some independent artists. One of them kind of had a #1 independent at the time. But we had this old radio promoter that was at the office hanging around every day. Because back in the day, you used to have to call the radio stations on call days and beg them to play your record or whatever, you know, so every Tuesday or Wednesday. But this guy was doing it since the 50s. 50s and 60s and 70s, whatever. So he's old school cat, one cigarette after another, same thing. And he said, you know what you boys need? I said, what? You know, like back then, what do I need? You know? And he said, you need distribution. And I said, what the hell is distribution? You know what I mean? Like, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, what you need to do is you need to go down to Memphis and talk to them Phillips boys. And I'm like, oh, who's that? You know, it ended up being Sam Phillips and Johnny Phillips and Selected Hits in Memphis. So,
which is a branch of Sun Records.
Well, right. Sam Phillips baby. And the Phillips family started Sun Records and all that stuff. And Selected Hits was a distributor that Sam Sr., his son, and Johnny Phillips started. So anyway, so I had my dad. We drove all the way down to Memphis, and I got Johnny Phillips and Sam Phillips to sit down and talk to me. And again, they had to be looking at me like, this has got to be a joke, right? And they didn't take it seriously, I don't think. But we went back. At that time, I think I had pressed up a couple of thousand Pistol cassettes, and I had them in New Life. I had them, you know, consigning them here and there. I had a pretty good street team because Pete, he was a hustler on the street, and he was back in Pistol, and he had all the street kids and all the, you know, so we had a good little street team. And we were selling some records. So when Johnny Phillips called back to like New Life and some of the other places, they're like, oh yeah, this is kind of selling pretty hot. And one day I'm sitting in the office and the fax machine goes off. That's how old it was. You know, and I'm like, what's happening here? And the fax machine's gone off, and I look at it, and it's an order for 5,000 copies from Selected Hits. And at the time, you got paid on your wholesale. So a cassette was probably $3 wholesale. you know, and you sell it in a store for $7 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it added up to be about 20 grand,
Whew.
you know. So I was like,
Okay.
let's go.
Yeah.
You know, and I did 5,000 cassettes and 5,000 CDs. I forgot to put the explicit lyric thing on it, so I had to get 5,000 stickers and put them on each one.
Stamping each
Yeah.
one.
But anyway, so we were selling out of the trunk, and then we started selling in some stores, and now I had distribution. So that's kind of how, and again, I still didn't know nothing. When I say I knew nothing, I knew nothing. But I did have.
At what point did you start making beats?
Right from the beginning. Right on that project. I knew, so I had a really good friend of mine that passed away. His name was Guy Vaughn. He was from New Jersey, and he was a really good producer, and he kind of showed me how to work an old school SP 1200 and some other stuff. And so I kind of had that. I was a drummer when I was a kid. I had a band called Dirty Sneakers. Okay. Let's go. You know, and you know, so like I was a drummer, I had rhythm, and that was really kind of my main thing. And so I started making, but I didn't know anything about Southern rap really. I was into maybe I like the Ghetto Boy stuff was dope. Yeah. You know, stuff like that, and I was into it, but I was still like a hip hop kid in my head. Well, so, you know, which I think ended up being a good thing when I started making beats.
What was your first impression? Because Pistol had kind of a West Coast sound there for a while.
I couldn't understand him.
That's what
that was the first. That was the first thing. We every time, even now, like we've reconnected recently, and he'll talk to me on the phone. I'm like, what? And you know, just over, you know, and he talked to me, and I'm just like, but no, yeah, it was hard, man. Like, and you got to remember, Pistol's just a little bit older than me, so all these artists that I was dealing with were like my age. So it was really hard to get any kind of real respect out of them, or, you know, letting them let me guide anything at that time. You know, it was usually me over here and the artist and everyone else kind of chilling over here. And, you know, like.
What was the first, because even you talking about, because I actually wanted to ask that, because you're talking about even going down to Memphis and meeting with them and things like that. At what point did someone who wasn't related to you or managed by you, like, start really taking you serious, like as a
probably
businessman?
When I got the Ruthless record deal for Pistol.
How did that happen?
So, you know, we started selling a lot of copies of the Pistol record, and when I say a lot, we probably did 10,000 copies or so.
Just hitting like a bullet.
Yeah, hitting like a bullet before I got the phone call, which we were basically, again, we always managed to kind of have an office. My dad was usually over here on one side doing whatever, and I was off trying to be, you know, Russell Simmons or something, you know. And one day we get this phone call, and it's Easy on the phone. And we're just like, yeah, right, you know, whatever, sure. But no, and he starts talking. He's like, no, you know, I'm really interested in this project, you know, and he starts rattling off, hey, and where'd you get this sample? And where'd you do it? And, of course, I didn't have the answer to any of it. I was fumbling over everything, like, the Isley Brothers and, you know. Yeah. And so, yeah, and that turned into us, you know, putting that deal together with Ruthless. Only us, just for the record. Nobody did that deal. It was me, and that's it. No John Smiths. Nobody had any influence in doing
just the fact
that
you got
deal.
to talk to Easy like that.
Yeah, and that was right before he died. And I didn't get very long to talk to him. I mainly dealt with Jerry Heller at the time. And but, you know, Easy was always off getting laid or buying a studio, you know, and that's pretty much what he did.
I mean, on my Pistol CD, it said Ruthless Records, and then right below it, Street Flavor.
Yeah, because what I did was, and this was something that was kind of new at the time also, and again, this all was accidental, not because I knew anything. It was one of the first co-label deals. So instead of just signing Pistol directly to Ruthless, I did a co-label deal, and Pistol came along for that part. And at that time, it was really kind of a brand new kind of thing, and no one was really doing it, because it was always important for me to say, hey, look, it's not necessarily right now as important to me to have the money. It's more important to see my name next to that Ruthless name. So I wanted it to be a branding thing, you know, and, you know, Street Flavor has to be there. I don't want to just give you Pistol and, you know.
Well, it's an amazing bargaining chip later down the road, I'm sure, to go to Sony or somebody and say, I've already got this.
Yeah.
Where I'm tied to Ruthless.
And that became kind of like my hustle a little bit was, let's get the artist, let's make the record, let's see if we can sell some copies, and let's see if we can get a deal. Because that's really the only place you could get any Street Flavor can only do so much, but if Pistol's going to be a Biggie or somebody, it's going to take more than me. It's going to, it's going to have to go.
Leads me to my next question, because I think there's people in the Nashville rap scene that need to hear the answer to this question. But what does it really take to get a local Nashville rapper heard outside of Nashville?
Well, now it's a different world. I mean, this is completely different than when I was doing. Back then, it was all about SoundScan. It was all about what you're physically selling in the store. They didn't give a crap if you sold 8 million copies out of the trunk. It needed to be documented. So having a SoundScan and a barcode, that was it. Now, I think it's almost impossible. Let's just put it that way. I feel like you got a better chance of being struck by lightning. Talent has been pretty much pulled out of the equation. It's more about people chasing an algorithm. We call it tripping the cat. I don't know how, it's very hard to trip a cat. Same thing with the algorithm. Yeah. So, where the industry, and that'll come to when we talk about Spin Dat. I feel bad for any artist nowadays that they have to go through that process. The process of feeling they have to be something different than they are, for dancing around in their kitchen with their mom or something to try to make funny videos when they're not. Artists have to be the video guy, the actor. Everything's coming across weird. You know what I mean? Like, the music isn't speaking for itself anymore because of streaming and subscriptions have killed everything.
On one hand, someone could make the argument that because of social media and YouTube and streaming, it would be easier to get a bigger audience.
Because it's so saturated. It's not. It's just like anything else. The more of something you have, the less value it has. And because for $20 a month, you can have access to anything you want musically, music has no value. It's background noise now. It's elevator music all the time. And because the consumer doesn't necessarily have to be invested in that artist anymore to have their content, they don't care about it. That's why you have platinum artists that can't put 200 kids in a club. Because they're not really
TikTok
famous.
Artists.
Yeah, they have a platinum record or a gold record, but they don't have any fans. Wow. So it's an oversaturated world. Music is too cheap to make, and it's been sold to the artist. Just release a song a week, release an album. Are you crazy? Like, how many good songs do you think God's going to give you? For real. So what you're basically saying is promote good music with shit music. What? Like, when did that start happening? Yeah. Like, what I mean?
And the quality of each song is something we were actually talking about when we were talking about, like, when you said you were coming on.
Yeah.
And what I really want to talk to on the other side of the break, is, I mean, it seems like every album you put out, crack of it, like all of them, just banger on. Like, you didn't have to skip through any of them. So I can hear you say it, and now looking back on the albums that I know I listened to over and over and over that you produced, I know how much you meant what you just said.
Yeah.
The last thing I really want to touch on before because Stack, Jelly, all that'll take a whole nother episode. The reason why I'm glad this finally happened now.
Okay.
A week and a half ago, we got to be involved in filming of the new single that's about to be released by Juvenile. And we were all hanging out, smoking, drinking, and everybody's just reminiscing. And I got to witness, no cameras, no nothing. I got to witness Juvenile give you credit specifically, and Street Flavor credit for what you've done for hip hop here in Nashville. I was more of a fly on the wall, so I didn't really ask him a bunch of questions, but I wanted to ask, what is your connection with Juvie, and what's to that story?
This was a cool story. So through a mutual friend that was connected with them, he basically, I had a studio that I was kind of had a guy I was helping get the studio going. He had a really nice studio. I was like, look, let me help you on this end. I need a dope place to record. And they brought Cash Money through. And I ended up recording, 400 Degrees, Chopagetta in the City, Hot, Big Timers. And, so they came back.
I would have never known that.
Yeah, they came back the first time and they liked it so much that they came back another time and finished the other records. So that's, I think Lil Wayne was 16.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of course, Juvenile was there. BG was there. Slim, Baby. I mean, everybody was there. And so that a lot of people don't know that, and you know, it's
What did
I usually don't. Get
what did that have
the
to
story,
feel
You know
like?
what I mean?
Yeah. What did that have to feel like? Because everything we've talked about leading up is everyone that you talked to your dream and you expressed it and vocalized it out loud. You said everyone was looking at you like you had three heads and didn't believe it. And now you just said, now here you are.
Well, you know, at that time they were just, I mean, they had, look, they were killing it way more than I was at that time. You know what I mean? Like they pulled up in a stretch limo. I mean, like they were making money.
Yeah.
You know, but they didn't have the Universal deal yet.
Yeah.
So it hadn't got to that level yet.
But they were also working with Selecto Hits.
Yeah, they were. And, you know, and they were at that time I had worked at A&M in New York for a year. I was a VP in New York for A&M when I took a break after the newspaper article. But I had a buddy, Rick Wake, who produced all of Mariah Carey's stuff, Someday, all those big early hits from her. And I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, I just started a label at A&M and you want to come up and work? I was like, hell yeah, let's go. But anyway, I came right back. But, you know, that was a really cool experience. And like I said, that's why it's important for me to sit with you guys and go through this story, because I've never been the guy who even cared one bit about anybody even know if I existed. It was more important for me to let people know that Charlie P existed in Haystack. I could care less in the background. You know what I mean? You want to take credit for the beat, go ahead. But what do I care? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter to me.
Juvenile's exact quote was, he said,
golly, that's
no,
awesome.
He said, nobody, and I thought it was awesome, because the way of fate, the way this show works, we get cancellations, this and that. If we'd have recorded with you months ago, we wouldn't have heard Juvenile say, he said, when it comes to Nashville hip hop, it's always been here. But it started with street flavor, and nobody did it like Sonny Paradise. When I came down here, these boys had Cadillacs. These boys had cars, which I heard about your $200,000 credit limit at the dealership.
Oh, where'd you hear that from?
Little birdie.
Oh, okay. That's it. Well, when that newspaper article hit, they pulled my line.
Oh.
So I had a $250,000 credit line with Regent Dodge in Rivergate. And if you said, hey, man, I need a car, I'd be like, I'd just call up and, hey, give Blake a car, you know, and let him pull off, you know. But it's, you know, it was
pretty badass.
Yeah. You know, I mean, my CD manufacturer and cassette manufacturer said, we're not doing any more cassettes and CDs. My Selecta hits straight up, Johnny, Jeff, you guys, they canceled me. Can't distribute with us no more. You know, I had the whole top floor of what now is, I think, the loft.
So Music Row?
Yeah, right on West End. Yeah. You know, and the landlord, Lineberry, kicked me out. You know, it was a mess. I mean, it was a mess, because back then I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have anything at that point. I was completely canceled. You know, and Street Flavor was pretty much just right at a peak at that point.
Yeah.
You know, I just got Pistol's Ruthless deal. I put Boogie on Relativity. You know what I mean? Like, I had 2 major label deals in that short period of time. I had multiple publishing deals, you know, so things were starting to really kind of kick up, you know, and then boom. You know, that I had Rude Awakening's album set to be released, Papa J's album set to be released. I had 5,000 T-shirts, 5,000 cassettes, 5,000. I was going to release Rude Awakening, Papa J at the same time. That's why their covers had each other's stuff on the inside. So, you know,
which was also genius.
Yeah.
By the way.
No one was doing that at the time
The
either.
promoters.
No.
Yeah, you know, I was the first. I was the first one
now.
to take those Murder Dog ads out that had multiple covers on them. You know, I was throwing stickers in the Source magazine, so when he bought the Source magazine, he thought the sticker came with it.
Well,
you know, like,
after the break, we'll talk about the amazing stuff that came out of this.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear word from our sponsors of this episode, and we'll be right back here with Sonny Paradise. We are back here with the one, the only Sonny Paradise. Sonny, we kind of like went through, the article and the influence of your dad and kind of the upcoming of like the rise of street flavor.
Yeah.
And then just kind of getting sawed off at the knees with that article.
Yeah, we did the Ruthless deal with Pistol and the major deal with Boogie, which came not too long after that, and so we were kind of doing it big. And then when that newspaper article hit, we got canceled. Canceled. I mean, not today. You know what? Your Instagram gets locked, but back then, my whole life got locked out. I mean, they canceled everything. No one wanted to work with us. And it wasn't even something we really hid from our inner circle. Everybody knew my dad was in jail. Everybody knew the whole story. We didn't keep that from anybody. We just didn't put out a newspaper article about it.
Well, in the Tennessee, and that was a hit piece. And they had a style of that back then.
It was bad. And it was the Sunday paper. Back when we were younger, the Sunday paper was about a Bible thick.
Yeah.
And we were on the front freaking page. And I remember waking up one morning and getting coffee. I guess it was at the Mapco right there on Stewart's Ferry. And I'm walking in, just bopping, it's a May and whatever, was nice. And I'm going to get my coffee, and I walk by the stack of papers, and it just caught me on the eye, and it was me and my dad on the cover. I was like, God, jeez. They set us up on that one, too.
Who do you think tipped him off on that or dug that
My
story
cousin
up?
was living down here, and he had some problems at the time, and I think he said, hey, I got a story for you, kind of thing.
Got some money from it?
Because I always figured you knew where it came from.
I can't prove that, but that's kind of what I think happened.
Yeah. So how did you go about rebuilding everything, and at what point did the big-ass white boy himself, Haystack, come into the mix of things?
So,
J-Dog.
I had, look, I was homeless not too long before that. And I ended up living at my girlfriend's house with her parents. Imagine this. Here I am, supposedly, Sonny P or whatever, street flavor, and I'm shacked up with this chick at her parents' house, and I had nothing. And so I started thinking about who can I call, and that's when I reached out to Rick Wake, and he just had a new situation with A&M. He gave me this job, paid to move me up there, and I ended up leaving and coming back to Nashville. But I had a little bit of money saved up because of the job, right? And I came back down, and I just felt like I needed to, I don't know, something drew me back to say I can't end it that way. I've got
to ask why I come back to Nashville.
Yeah, I couldn't see it just ending that way, and I still had this drive. And I came back to Nashville in a U-Haul truck, and the first place I went was Dollar General because Kevin was working there. And I picked up DJ Dev while he was behind the thing, and we walked out on the spot together in that RV. In that U-Haul. And I don't know what I pawned, but I pawned a few things. I got a keyboard. I got, a drum machine. I rented a little office probably about the size of this part right here. And we found this artist named Crooked IQ and made an album on him just to get started again, but I still didn't have distribution. Remember, select hits, whatever. And one day or 1 week, I had pneumonia. I was sicker than a dog. I didn't have a car. Kevin had a car that the windows didn't roll down in. It was August in Tennessee. It had to be 100 degrees. I have pneumonia. I'm in this old ass Audi that the windows don't roll down in. And I drove all the way to Memphis with no air conditioning, with the windows up, and the sunroof cracked. So I held my hand out all the way to Memphis so the air would come in, coughing like I was dying. And I went to Memphis and I begged for them to give me back my distribution. And I think Johnny Phillips just felt bad for me. Like, this motherfucker's about to die in front of me.
He's got pneumonia.
But I also...
Sonny's Make-A-Wish.
But I also got a check while I was there. And I talked them into giving me $5,000.
Wow.
And I took that $5,000 and I made Back with a Vengeance. And it had Pistol, Boogie, and Papa J on the cover coming out of the graves. And that's why I labeled it Back with a Vengeance, because, thanks to Pistol, thanks to Boogie, thanks for doing that for me at that time, because they really didn't have to. But I think at that time I was almost like a pity case for everybody almost, but they also knew, I think, if they can get me back, that everybody can kind of get back a little bit too. Something could come out of it good. And I took a little bit of money. I gave it to Pistol, gave it to Boogie, gave it to Papa J, rented a studio, made back with a vengeance. I rented a house in Englewood, right there by Englewood Baptist Church,
Yeah.
across from Sonic. And don't ask me how I talked that guy into that, but I did, and that got Street Flavor kind of, back in action just a little bit. And I had a buddy, again, back up north, who did a lot of house music, and he had a studio, big old console and everything. He's closing the studio. He's like, "You come get this stuff, you could have it." So here I am again, U-Haul truck, all the way to New Jersey, pick up this console, 5,000 vinyl records, right? Because it was he had big dance guy and stuff. They had all these records, some speakers. So we were kind of back in action a little bit. And Back with a Vengeance did it. I had some other artists I was working with. I did a project on Fresh, which was The Whole Truth, So Help Me. It didn't really do much, but it we did it.
Yeah.
But again, I was just getting started again. And I met Stack through Rude Awakening. So Stack was hanging with them when the whole newspaper article hit. Rude Awakening helped move the studio, and we all bailed out for a while, and they helped move all the stuff. And I met Stack through them, and at that time, we thought Stack was going to be a third member of Rude Awakening. And he was going by J-Dog at the time.
Yeah.
So, and again, you can only do so much as a label. You can't sign everybody. You can't do everything. So, we were more focused on Rude Awakening at the time. But a few years later, jump now to 1998, and I get a call, and I'm sitting at my desk again, and it's like, "Sundog," and I'm like, "Who's this?" He's like, "It's J-Dog," and I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?" Because I knew I didn't really have a whole lot to offer anybody about anything. But so he starts telling me about how he's doing this project and, and stuff that he's doing. I was like, "Oh, no, that's cool." And he said, "But look, man, I changed my name." I was like, "Yeah, to what?" I'm being real kind of like, I don't care, He goes, "Haystack without the C." And but wait a second. But it created this instant image for me. I knew what he looked like.
Like Haystack's Calhoun.
The wrestler. But what I'm saying, but in my brain, as soon as he said without the C, this whole image of Stack as a rapper and what I could do with that, just the name and him, felt like it just was like a light bulb. And I was like, "When can you come down?" And he came down and he played me some songs that he had demoed. He was working with Eric McAnally, who recently passed away. And Eric got in trouble. He was getting ready to go to jail. And Eric was like, "Look, I can't do nothing with this. You take it away." And, I had made a deal with him that I said, "Look, if anything comes out of this when you get out of jail, I'll help you out as much as I can." And I honored that, however many years later it was. I gave him a job when he got out and stuff. So, but yeah, so that's how Stack came around. And, we sat out on that porch one night and he started rapping. And, I heard this sound in my head that sounded like a train. And we made Go to War that night on the beat in the back room.
Legendary.
And, and I sat back there and then he just, all this, make me go banana, and he just started, boom. And we went to, we just cut that. It was just crazy. It just happened really fast. But we put that record out, and that record did nothing for 13 months. And 13 months later, I get a phone call from Jeff at Selected Hits. He said, "Hey, that Haystack record sold 300 copies this week." I said, "You mean this month?" Like kind of almost smart alecky again. And he goes, "No, man, this week." And that was because Dr. Dre just announced that he had signed a white rapper and that this project was going on. So now people were checking, I think, a little bit for white rappers, and there it was. It just started to go. And that record just, I don't know, it sold about 10,000 copies pretty quick.
Now, I think some of those early Stack records had a couple of Bubba Sparks features.
Yeah, that came a little bit later, like The Natural is when Bubba came around, because Ugly, I think, dropped in 2002, and 360 dropped in 99.
Okay.
And at that, I just got married at that time. There was a lot going on. It was like, it was a crazy time. And before I started doing Car Full of White Boys, I said, "Look, let me marry this lady. Let me get her kid to like me, and I promise we're going to give me 6 months and I'm going to give you this next advance something no independent labels were doing, by the way, and we're going to do this next project. And at that time, I was also getting back into doing a stock deal, a legit one though, on a company that I had called Eline Music. And this was before MySpace, before YouTube. I had the VidBox. I had Eline Music, where you could upload videos, where you could upload movies. You can be an independent artist and sell your own music. You can get on there and promote and talk in chats. I had all that before MySpace. So, and I was doing that all through a stock deal. So basically, I started putting money together through that. And that's how I was funding Car Full of White Boys and all that stuff. So I bought the building behind Tractor Supply in Mount Juliet. I bought all those green roof buildings back there. I had all that. And, so not all of them, but I had the one main building right behind it.
Yeah.
Tractor Supply wasn't even there. And I bought that, and I built a badass studio in there. And before that was even finished, I was cutting Car Full of White Boys on West End renting a studio to cut it. That's kind of how Carful. And 6 months to the day, Stack called me up, said, "Hey man, boom!" And I wrote him a check.
Wow.
Boom. We went from there.
I was actually listening to a podcast Yellow Wolf was on the other day.
Yeah.
The white rapper. Obviously, I know who you're talking about with Dre, but people like differentiate themselves like I'm a white rapper, like it's almost like a sub-genre.
Yeah.
Like when someone says I'm a white rapper, like what do you?
Well, when Stack first, when he first called me, I was like, I don't really know if I want to mess with a white rapper, because I didn't, at that time, there wasn't really a marketing avenue. Mm-hmm. How do you get there with a white rapper? What was their third base, Vanilla Ice?
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody of any real credibility at the time that you could really light a match with. So once Dre said it was okay, I think that's really when people were like, okay, he said it was cool, so now we can, the talent's there. And I really don't see any difference between a white rapper and a black. If you're dope, you're dope. I mean, it's just what it is. But the industry at the time didn't see it that way. They were calling what Stack was doing hip hop. They were calling.
When did that term is huge right now?
Oh no, this was 1999.
I was gonna say, when did
Murder
they start
Dog
using
Magazine? Double XL. We're calling it hip hop and redneck rap and stuff like that. Way, way, way before all this stuff now.
Because for me, black, white, if you're from Nashville, you're country.
Yeah,
and so Southern country.
Yeah.
So like, even if you're rapper, you're gonna have some country, some Southern in there. Even
I try to say that to Stack. I was like, look, you're country by default.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling it country rap because you're a rapper who sounds country. Stack wasn't trying to be a country rapper. He was just country rapping.
Yeah.
But that's what the industry was calling it.
What's your opinion on the evolution of that now? Because you had a country dude rapping, but then now it's kind of evolved of like a country artist and a rap artist on the same track to now like the real, I wouldn't even say Stack was even redneck sounding, especially early on,
right? To
now
they thought Stack was Mexican on the first album. Actually, it's kind of funny. I got a lot of that. People were like, "Is this a Mexican dude or what?"
But the evolution of now there is like actual like real rednecks out here rapping in like hip hop.
It's a whole thing now.
Makes sense now. That evolution, like, how do you think that went a good direction, a good evolution? Is this where you saw things going?
I think there's people that are doing good versions of everything, am I a big fan of the country rap scene? It just depends on I'm like a song fan. Like, if YZ from Upchurch is an undeniable record to me, as far as a country rap record. Yeah. And then of course the things that, Struggle did, or some of the things that maybe Adam Calhoun did or whatever. I mean, there's good stuff in there. So, but, I just like rap music. I think that breaking up the cultures, kind of just like country music kind of infiltrating everything now has hurt culture in general, because I feel it's important to have genres. When we were younger, you kind of clicked up with people because of what you listened to. You got, what I'm saying? Like you had the headbangers over here, and you had the skate kids over here listening to Black Flag and all that's Dead Kennedys. And,
Yeah.
you know, so you kind of could create these like cultural pockets because of the genres of music. And now I feel like that's gotten a little lost. And, you know,
well, I think about when you moved here, the people that told you you're going to go against the grain or this or that. And I can remember my own father saying, because rap was still new in its infancy. And so I can remember my father saying, it won't be a genre in a decade.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And, yeah, I don't know if I did good or bad. I don't know, you know.
Well, like, I mean, to me, if you ask me,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to just nut ride, but
I understand.
But I feel like hearing your story, you crawled, so even the full blend of like a Shabuzi could fly the way they're flying now.
Yeah. I see that.
But when you set out to build something here, did you have an idea of what a vision for a final product is? Are we close to what you wanted to build as a whole?
I think I always wanted to do better. I never really made the records I wanted to make, mainly because of financial reasons, or, you know, you're trying to get artists to do certain things and maybe they don't want to do them, or, you know what I mean? Like even Pistol, like I never wanted Pistol to be a commercial artist. He's a gangster rapper. But I knew I needed something, some kind of single I could work if he was ever going to be a Biggie or somebody like that, or even 3 6 Mafia had club records, you know.
Yep.
So like they had something they can work. But, you know, that's the challenge. And I always, you know, that's why we brought in a Shannon Sanders when we got to Car Full of White Boys, because up to that point, I don't feel like the music was where I wanted it to be. The mixes weren't the way I wanted them to sound. I wasn't getting it there. And, you know, you needed to bring in a really good musician, somebody who can play everything, who can sing if you need him to sing. I could sing, you know, my first day or something, but like I wasn't a Shannon Sanders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, we needed that, and that kind of helped elevate it. And then you also need to bring in young people, like when we were doing Charlie P stuff and we had Jody Stevens and everything else, you know, Jody was young. And, you know, he would sit in the studio all night and he'd bang out beats, and he brought that youth to it. And, so I was always just trying to make it better. Even with Street Flavor, I was just trying to, and it wasn't necessarily a target that I could see as much as I was just trying to make it better. I wanted Street Flavor to always, this is part of me being from up there. When I was in New York, I had opportunities to be in a big studio. I had opportunities to see what a major label office looked like. You know what I mean? Like I was with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like in a studio with them, you know.
That's amazing.
And so when I was in Nashville, if I were to do an office, I tried to make my office have that feel. I wanted the marketing to have that feel. When I was a kid, there was this thing called K-Tel Records, and if I get too far off the really bad.
Oh, no, you're fine.
So K-Tel used to run these commercials. Hits of the 50s, hits of the 60s, and they would take the vinyl record and they'd take the cassette and they'd sit it on this piece of like velvet.
I remember.
And for $2 more, you can get hits of the 60s. And, you know, and so in Nashville, when I was doing Pistols thing, I was dating this girl who worked at the local TV station, and I would get these $5 rotators, and I'd take Pistols cassette and a CD and I'd sit it on the thing and we'd shoot the commercial. I'd play the song in the background and I'd run the commercials, but they would run between like Arsenio Hall and the Final Four basketball game.
Oh, wow.
So like it looked like Street Flavor's commercial was right there with Pepsi and whatever, even though it was just some cheap local, you know, thing that we shot, but it looked kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know, it was the first time you saw any kind of Nashville rap music being represented on TV, and I think that was a big part of it.
I think it validated a lot for a bunch of us. You're talking about like you growing up, like the rockers and the punks here, you know, the rock, you know, everybody had their own little thing of like what you listened to. Well,
the box was coming out. I made sure we were on that. And even when 101 The Beat came to town, I mean, we were the first to lock in with them. We were the first to make if they played a local record before us, I would have been mad at that time. Like, you know, there was always this, it started to get to a point where we did feel like we had a little chip on our shoulder. Like we did have something to prove. We wanted to make sure Street Flavor always came, just like you mentioned about Juvenile, like we made it an effort, even if I was broke, and I'll tell you a funny story about that session if you want me to.
Yeah.
Baby asked me to go. I just told Charlie this story last night. They, back then we cut on 2-inch tape, but those reels were like $350 a pop. And just in casual conversation, Baby's like, "Oh yeah, man, do me a favor, go pick us up 2 reels and bring them to the studio." I didn't have 2 cents to my name that day. So I had to scramble for $600 to get those 2 reels to that session, without making it seem like I was broke, asking them ahead of time or anything. You know what I mean? So just so you know, it was feast or famine 90% of the time with Street Flavor. I was between nothing and everything all the time. And
I think that is a Haystack lyric.
Yeah, and I wanted to
Between
call
nothing and everything.
I wanted to call start to finish between nothing and everything, but we went start to finish. So.
What I remember just in my younger days is your promotion, is the relentless promotion.
Yeah.
That is something even to this day that I still take notes of, because I believe even in a digital age, you can still do that guerrilla promotion.
That's where we're at.
Hitting the streets. You need old school and new school. Kind of a promoter's promoter is just, I remember skating anywhere y'all could get a show, skating rink shows.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's another thing. Again, I don't want to say that Nashville was slow. It wasn't a mentality. It's just the city wasn't there yet. But I came from the biggest city in the world. Mm-hmm. And as a kid growing up, I got hit with stickers. I got hit with demo tape, like, dudes in New York City, trying to get cigarettes and handing out, demos and underground mixtapes. And, I came from the world of street marketing. So when I came to Nashville, I just adapted that too. Like the stickers going on the return Dropbox at the video store. We just guerrilla marketing.
I remember that with Car Full of White Boys. I can remember seeing it everywhere you went. Something to the, I'm not saying you had anything to do with this, but even like in East Nashville where I grew up, the back of the stop signs would have CWB on them. Yeah. Before stuff,
Well, we're really trying to do that even now. We're trying to basically our kind of mission is basically to say, we want to do things in an old school way, but deliver it in a modern way.
Yeah.
So.
With Haystack.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up here of exposure to all types of music, obviously country, but growing up and loving rap. And then when Haystack was popping off and y'all were crushing.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all behind him thinking that was going to be the one that actually went mainstream,
Me
put
too.
Nashville on the map. What happened?
So Car Full of White Boys did good. The problem with Car Full of White Boys is when I basically, again, I released the song, I sold some records independently on the street, and then I went and did a deal with Koch. The reason why I did a deal with Koch was Alan Grunblatt was running Koch, and I had knew Alan Grunblatt all the way back from 93 with Relativity and the Ruthless deal, so I felt comfortable. And what happened was, at the time, this newspaper article came out about some people in Texas who had dragged some black kid behind the car, and the article had Car Full of White Boys in the article.
Oh, I never knew that.
I did not know that.
Right in the midst of us releasing that record through Koch, we had to pull back the record, take Car Full of White Boys off of it, and re-release it just as Haystack with the same cover. So there's 2 versions of that album, one with Car Full of White Boys on it and one with just Haystack. So it screwed up the whole initial roll.
I wish I had brought it today. I still have a copy of the radio samples y'all gave out that were edited.
Yeah.
That just had the sample of each song on there.
Yeah. I forgot I even did that.
Car Full of White Boys.
So that's kind of killed the momentum of that record. And then, we still ended up doing a second one with Koch, which was The Natural. Mm-hmm. And, that did pretty well. And Stack sound scanned in every sound scan market in the country at that time. So he was an underground artist, but he was doing real numbers. And, and then after that,
we were showing up at the media play in Rivergate.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a long line for it, but we showed up as soon as they opened just to get the new Stack albums.
And, then CWB kind of came in and, believe it or not, I really wasn't making any money then either. I was still pretty much, I had just in salary alone, I probably was burning $30,000 a month between the people that were working for the label, overhead back then, $2,000 phone bills. I was taking care of a lot of people at that time. And once the money started kind of drying up a little bit, that's when things started to get shaky. And I started talking to Scarface because they started Def Jam South, and I tried to get CWB a deal. I had a deal on the table for them with Universal. That kind of got screwed up because at the last minute, they want to change contracts and some other things, and it turned into a whole mess. But everybody stayed friends after that, so it's okay. But that's kind of where the Stack and me thing kind of started to fall apart. But I kind of put them in position already with Def Jam, and then they kind of went to Def Jam without me. But when they got to Def Jam and they started cutting all these records, Scarface was getting frustrated because it wasn't going the way it was. And one day Stack got me on the phone. He's like, "Hey, man, do me a favor. Can I put you on? But don't just listen. Don't let anybody know you're on the phone." And it was Scarface. And Scarface didn't know I was on the phone, but he said, Stack's like, "Oh, we're doing this." And Face said, "All I want to know is where the hell is goddamn Sonny Paradise? That's what the fuck I want to know." This is Scarface. So then I came back in, because Bun B was A&R'ing at that time for the project, and they had cut some songs, and I guess it just, the momentum, I mean, they weren't cutting fast enough. It wasn't really anything that Stack was doing necessarily, but they needed an organizer. They needed somebody to get it back on track. But when that fell apart, me and Stack kind of started linking back up again, and that's when we started Portrait of a White Boy, and it was just me and him. And we did Portrait of the White Boy.
Great album.
Yeah.
Front to back. Yeah. Great album.
And, and I did something unique too back then that no one was doing. Me and Stack went to Selecta Hits, and we sold that trilogy before we even cut a single beat or track. And, we did it as kind of like a quasi catalog deal almost, where we sold a chunk of the master and got them to advance us. They were giving us money in pieces, and we had the vision for that whole trilogy before we even started it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So kind of the first of that kind of thing.
So I'm sure we're overlapping and blending and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, but at what point did Struggle and Jelly come into the pic?
They came in Jelly was around pretty early, before Struggle. Struggle came in during Halfway House. And, I don't even think a lot of people know that I did Jelly's first rap album, which was The Hate Goes On, and that was a banging album. That was really, really good. But it never got where it needed to be because there was some things involved with it that, I think Jelly was just looking out for some friends and stuff like that, and it couldn't put it out the way we initially planned to do. So I think it existed in digital, but never in a couple maybe physical copies early on. But that was an amazing album. We did Street Flavor mixtape, and Jelly was all over that. And then Charlie P was around because he was here with the Burners. We skipped over the Burners.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, there's too much to talk about in one thing. But that's when Jelly came around. That again, he came back once around, and probably early, maybe. God, I met him probably first time in '97, just a kid.
Oh wow!
And then he came back around again, probably in 04, 05, somewhere around there.
When I met Jelly was probably right before the Haystack the movie or whatever with
the documentary
was that Cool
we did
Peoples that was
that came in the CD with it.
Yeah,
that was somewhere around there. And Jelly, and Jelly was relentless, dude. I mean, he would say things like, "I'm just going to be wherever you're going to be, Mr. Sonny Paradise." He just would be there, and that worked for him because, dude, you got to give it to him. And I tell my son this all the time. I'm like, he just simply outworked everybody. He just stayed consistent, and he stayed on people's bumper.
Well, there's that.
He stayed in the studio. You have to kick him out.
It goes back to the creative conversation we had earlier, that pushing that creativity.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so that was an era in itself.
Mm-hmm. Local Legend came out during then,
right.
Street Flavor mixtape, Jelly's first album, the Halfway House, all that kind of happened in that. Street Flavor had these little errors, and that was kind of the trilogy all the way through to Local Legend, to The Hate Goes On, to the Halfway House. That was all in that stretch, that run.
What was it like to have Charlie P, Worm, Jelly, all these guys running around. Did you feel like the dad that you
Charlie,
didn't want to know
when
what
you
went
do
on
Charlie's
outside?
interview, he can talk about that one. But for me, it was always like it's kind of like why Struggle never really officially was signed to Street Flavor was because I could only do so much. Like at the time, I had Stack, and Stack was kind of the hottest rapper around at the time. And then and Jelly was there, and he was really good, but I couldn't commit to really anybody fully because I didn't have the money, the resources, or the time to just sign everybody I wanted to. But Charlie was there all the time. I mean,
well, I was taking notes back then, and so at the album release party for Crackavelli, Charlie P performed. He opened up. Jelly opened up, but you also had a girl that was a country artist. You had a little dude that was a Christian artist.
Oh, yeah.
You got up, you promoted everybody in the room. Everybody bought his CD, Who She Is. It was in a club that's no longer there on Charlotte, I believe, that's been demolished.
Yeah.
But I watched you, and I'm pretty sure you dipped out after that, but your promotion was on point. Some of the most professional cameras I had seen. It was a full layout album release party, like what you want to see now, where the albums were laid out, where there was somebody, with merch, and not to mention a room full of legends. I remember that Stack took the stage that night, and I looked at a Metro cop, and he said, "This ain't a Krispy Kreme. I don't know what you're doing in here."
Oh, shit.
The common theme here is you saying that things happen kind of accidentally, or
maybe
you didn't have a plan.
I think maybe I just, my motivation just put me in position necessarily. I never really had the best plan. I just knew something had to be done all the time. And if I would stop, then you lose the momentum or you lose the artist. You got to feed the artists. You got to keep them happy. You got to feed them beats. You got to keep their creativity going. They got to feel like they're part of something that motivates them to make music too. Mm-hmm. So there was always that pressure of me feeling like, okay, I got to provide the right environment. I got to have some resources for them because then they'll just go over to another label. So there was a lot of pressure on that, and paying rent and having my own family and taking care of that too, and not really making money from records. It was rough.
But it was do you feel like you had a vision? Because we also know what Jelly looked like in 2004, aesthetically. Is his fame now? Did any of it surprise you?
No, not really. I mean, I think look where he's at now probably surprises everybody. But if you know him and you were there through the process, you're not as surprised at all, because you understand that he was a pain in the ass. He was on your bumper, literally. He would just be everywhere, and he had a lot of energy, and he made people like him. And he was talented, and he wrote, and he knocked one song out after another. I mean, he just never stopped recording.
I've heard him talk about calling you and saying, "Where you at? Why won't you open the studio?" And you're going, "Dude, it's Thanksgiving. Why are you at the studio?"
Oh, you know that story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we fed him that day. And when he would eat with us at my house, my wife was a school teacher. He'd be like, "I feel like I'm at my probation officer's house," but Charlie too. I mean, everybody was so young, but I'm glad I got to be part of that story, because his story is pretty incredible. And there's a lot of great stories. I mean, Stack's story is incredible. He's, to me, Stack could have been where Jelly's at in a way. I feel like that we
always thought that too.
Yeah, he definitely had the talent to do it. And it's not. People like him are always one great record away from being right where they were. I say that whether it's Bubba Sparks, whether it's Charlie, whether it's any of these artists I've worked with in the past, one great record. That's it. And it just got to stay consistent, and Save Me, I think, pretty much changed Jelly's life. I think the fact that he had a great record during COVID, and that ability where people were home, they were locked on their computers, they were on, they had nothing else to do. Here's that damn song, boom, and it was so huge. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime record, and he just kept making good songs after that. That's the difference.
Well, you skipped over something.
I skipped over all the hard work you did before that. But
no, but what you skipped over is I feel like what really built that momentum is he had some momentum going, and then y'all reached back to Hey Goes On.
Oh, yeah.
You produced that, right?
That's right.
And
well, I skipped. There you go.
But
too much stuff. I forget.
When y'all went to
we called it
Addiction Kills.
We did that. Addiction Kills was the album, but that first record we did together was called The Hate Goes On because it was kind of like a throwback tribute to the first album with me and him, and he was smart to do that.
Was that his idea?
Gold.
To go back to Hate Goes On?
Yeah.
Because even the Halfway House had the Hate Goes On song. That was a banger with him and Struggle.
Yep. And that was kind of his idea to do that. And it was fitting. It was cool.
So you've talked a lot about, like, you saying behind the scenes, you don't never really cared
This is the first time I've even like interviewed with anything. Like, I've really just not been motivated on that side. Yeah. But I feel like it's important now. I feel like Street Flavor's story is important. There's been so much interest in it lately. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because everybody's kind of growing up and looking back on how they got where they're at, and Street Flavor just keeps popping up in the conversation. I don't know what's been the new.
I mean, in the streaming era, when I get to pick what I listen to, I mean, something that you touched is on rotation every day.
Yeah, thank you.
And so this might be a little uncomfortable for you because you're just now getting back into, being on microphones and things like that. But what is your real strong suit? You talk about making beats, but you didn't want to make beats. Like, so an artist working with you, what do they get from you that they don't get any from else? Brag on yourself a little bit.
Well, I always tell people, it's like, it doesn't matter if Shannon made the beat or Kevin made the beat or Jody made the beat. I think my strong suit, if I were to have one, is my ability to put that entire body of work together, to take people's ideas and just do the simplest little variation to something in that beat or that song, or add something to that changes the trajectory of where that song is going to go. And I think I'm a project guy. Like, I can sit back and say, stop, take all of this out of the beat. Car Full of White Boys being a perfect example of that, where it starts off with the timpanis. That beat was a straight beat all the way through. And I showed up at the studio we was running on West End, and the engineer at the time was playing that for me. And I just said, we need to break this completely down to nothing, strip it all out. And that's kind of how it banged in the beginning.
It changed the whole song.
And other people can probably speak on it better than me, but I think it was Shannon's idea to bring in Dave Davidson to play strings on Car Full of White Boys, way before anybody else who claimed they brought Dave Davidson in. And just having the ability to say, hey, I always wanted to have guitars in music. I always wanted to have real strings in songs like Wish You Can See Me, but you have,
Nothing But Nothing, violin.
Yeah, exactly. And, a lot of that was, again, bringing Shannon in at that time, and Shannon have the musical theory to be able to put some of those arrangements together. But my strong suit, if anything, is just my ability to put it all together and to bring things down to a more simple version. You got guys like Jody back then who was young and everything was so busy. It sounded like sounds everywhere, and they were so banging. But my ability to kind of reach in and find the best of it, maybe kind of eliminate the noise. And some other people might be able to back that up. But I think if I had a strong suit, that might be it.
You keep talking about the story of Street Flavor and why things like this are important, and want to say it now. It's an honor to be a part of telling that story that meant so much to us and got us through a lot of hard times. When in the future, your son's doing music. In the future, when people go back and talk about Street Flavor, especially like the rise and the early days, how do you want that to be remembered?
Ooh. I think before Street Flavor, there was nothing. And I don't say that in an arrogant way. I say it like Street Flavor gave people, they could say to themselves, it could be done. I think that's an important thing for me, that because of Street Flavor, other smaller labels were like, you know what, it's here, and now I see it, and now I know I could actually do it, and I know it could be done. And I think, 34 years now, and I think that if people can give, not even me, just give the label the credit of saying that, you know, if it wasn't for street flavor, you know, I'm not really sure what this city would be. Would it be Music City, or would everybody still be going to Memphis and Atlanta, LA, and New York?
Right.
Because that's what I had to do when I started Street Flavor. No one wanted nothing to do with Nashville except for country music. So I had to go to Memphis radio to get my songs played. I had to promote in Atlanta. I had to go to Louisville, Chattanooga. I never promoted in Nashville really, other than the ground game, you know, and trying to get that little local spark. But I always came back to Nashville. You know, I went outside and came back. So, you know, I think if I didn't make Jelly, but I feel like if there wasn't a Rude Awakening, there wouldn't have been a Stack. If there wasn't a Stack, there wouldn't have been a Jelly. If there wasn't a Jelly, there wouldn't have been a Struggle. If there wasn't that, there wouldn't have been any of the white rap scene for sure.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if there wasn't a Pistol, would there have been a Fresh?
Right.
If there wasn't the fact that we showed people that you can get a major deal with an artist out of Nashville, would anybody have ever got a deal later? You know, would Nashville even became a place that you looked or thought it could be done? And I think that Street Flavor showed people it could be done. We were 100% the first, no matter what anybody says, you know, and I really feel like we're responsible for, if anything, just letting Nashville know that it can be done. And I think that if when people look back, if I can at least get that, you know,
I mean, when you
that's
have
not
the,
to say
when
Jelly
you have the
wouldn't have been
stats
successful
to
or
back it up.
Yeah,
Well-
that's not to say any of these artists wouldn't have been successful, because you just don't know. Like, and they had the talent, so it's not like they couldn't have went somewhere else to get it. I just don't know if they could have popped it off here.
If you do the lineage though, and
Yeah.
you took the tree from the roots all the way out,
Yeah.
from, you know, Top Dollar to Savannah Days,
That's right.
and you take it each direction.
I keep forgetting about, you know,
you know,
and you know, I think Dave D. Ray said it best. David Ray, you know,
legend.
you know, and he was in the burners. He was, you know, you know, he kind of said, like, the more you take Street Flavor out of the conversation, the more you have to take a lot of other names out too.
Damn. That's that.
Yeah.
That sums it up right there.
I need a little more context on a couple lyrics from back in the day.
I hope I remember what album it was on.
So, in one of the Haystack albums, he says, he starts a song with, it's April. Y'all robbed us on April Fools. Took $100,000 worth of shit up out of here. It's May 1st. We back in business, bitches.
I think that's kind of the story of Street Flavor right there, you know. One studio moved in the middle of the night to another, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure he was probably talking about when we were making an album for an artist, and that artist was affiliated with somebody who got arrested, and they came in and pretty much took everything we had again, arrested me thinking that, you know, I was part of the whole thing, which I wasn't. And it was just, again, here's Sonny P, broke, no studio, no nothing again. And then I fucking just out of, I don't even know what it was. I don't know what motivated me. It just, I didn't want to be, again, left with that being the end of the story.
1 month later, back
1
in
month
business.
later. And I mean, I reached out to some people. I went up and my cousin at the time, you know, had just got a chunk of money, and he came back down with me with a bag of money, and we bought some gear, and that was the release party you were at.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we just got right back at it.
The other one is, he talks about being in New York in a limo with Sonny P and McNair.
I don't know about McNair being there, but
That might have been added by staff.
I think that might have been added in. Maybe it rhymed with something else, you know, Bad Air or something. I don't know. But no, we were definitely in limos in New York when we were when I was shopping, Car Full of White Boys and some of the other stuff. So for sure,
Man. This show is called The Music City Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest mindset shift you've had to go through as a business owner, a lesson that the city of Nashville taught you that has still stuck with you today?
There's a few things. One is, and I guess you guys said I could say, one is Nashville has a little bit of a fuck you with a smile. It has that. Nashville is a small city, big mentality, or a big mentality in a small city kind of thing, where Nashville's always been in that they were never as poppin' as Memphis at one point, and never as big as Atlanta. So we always had a little bit of a little guy syndrome, a little bit sometimes
chip on his shoulder
when it came to certain things. So I think that's a mentality, you know. But you know, I don't know. I think that's pretty much, you know, kind of how I see the mentality of Nashville. Also tricky. I call it the Hotel Nashville instead of California, where you can check out anytime you want, but you can't ever leave. You know, Nashville makes people believe you got to be here. It gives you that feeling that if you're not here, you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
You know, and especially now because it's so big and there's so much going on, you know, people really believe like, hey, man, this is the end all almost, you know, and I think that it's a great thing for the city, and it's cool that it's grown like that. But at the same time, people have to understand, you know, nothing I ever did popped off in Nashville first. It always was outside, back in. You got to get out and then come back, and then they'll love you. They're never going to love you right here. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You got to go out and prove it and come back, and then Nashville will love you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes you feel like they want to see you fail at first.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
And they embrace you when you come back.
You know, but that's the same. That goes back to the same thing. It's like especially early on, there wasn't a lot. It was like a whole lot of the same, you know, dogs trying to eat out of this little bowl. You know what I mean? At one time, and a lot of rappers. So it didn't have that same unity feeling that, say, Atlanta had. You know, where everybody kind of almost felt like they worked together. Nashville was a little bit more like, stay out of here, stay away from my thing. I'm trying to do this, you know, which is a shame, but I think it's better now. It's that people have definitely grown up. The city has grown up. The mentality's grown up. It's definitely a lot lighter now, and I think people have matured a lot. The city has matured. The music scene has matured. You know, you got people like Jelly on top of the world, and it's you know, it's a reflection of me and people like me having to suffer through that on behalf of everybody who's here now, so that it can mature that way. We did all the messed up stuff on everybody's behalf. You know, so I think now they got it. Now, you know, you guys, you know, you're setting out the right message, the right everything. Nashville's definitely in the right place now.
You know, your son doing music now.
Oh yeah.
My son, he lets me know how much I'm not cool most of the time. You know,
I just know I'm not.
And and he's definitely that reminder. Do you think your son fully realizes what you've done? And
I think he did. He started to realize it around Addiction Kills.
Okay.
Because he was, you know, 13, 14 years old. You know, and people would just come through the studio, and there was Jelly, and, you know, he saw how I interacted with them, and was like, you know, this little bit. And then he went on tour with Jelly as Jelly's bass player, and, you know, at 14, and, you know, like it was a really cool experience from there. I think from there on, he started to dig, and then he started to be like, oh, he had no clue really, you know, and then he was, I think he thinks, he 100% loves street flavor. He is the next. He's carrying the torch. He loves the history of it. He's all into it. He knows every lyric to everything out of Nashville. He's just a really cool kid.
As much as you say it surprises everybody, because it does. If you knew Jelly back in the day, where he's at now, I mean, doing the Vatican City, this and that.
That's crazy.
But would Sonny Paradise have ever thought that you would send your son on tour with Jelly at that age back in the day?
It was just kind of cool. It was just right at the right moment and what he was doing. And, you know, I was kind of quasi, you know, managing for him at the time too. And, you know, I was always scared to take on things that I didn't feel I could fulfill, you know, do full on. And I was like, look, man, just help me with this or that, and I'll help you with this. And, you know, he was really cool. He's like, all right, bring him to this rehearsal thing. And if he can hang, you know, well, I'll take him with me. And that's what he did. Cole went down there with his bass. The bass was almost as big as him. And Cole killed it.
That's awesome.
You know, I played the first Slum Fest with Jelly on his birthday. You know, I did some really cool stuff. And, you know.
Dude, that's awesome. You know. The common theme also has been just the roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of money. Feast or famine, as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't seem like you're bouncing around as much, more into the family, maybe priorities a little different. What does success mean to Sonny Paradise now?
I still want to do more. I think I may be more motivated now than I was. The difference is I'm more patient. I don't turn molehills into mountains. You know, I'm more relaxed a little bit. I'm definitely smarter than I was. And I want, you know, I feel like there's this legacy thing now. Like, you know, I want street flavor now to even, you know, 10 years when my kid's talking, he's on a podcast and they're saying, Cole, you know, I was been a fan of yours for 10 years. You know, I want him to be able to talk in that light and for people to, you know, carry on this thing, street flavor to have its, you know, 45th anniversary and, you know, keep it going, you know, and let Charlie and Cole run the shit. Let me ride off into the sunset.
With that, I mean, as a consumer of your products, that sounds drug related. I listen to your music.
Yeah.
It makes me really excited to hear you say that you're more motivated now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to ask before we get off here, like, what's next for Sonny Paradise? What's next for Street Flavor?
We're working on a bunch of projects. You know, like I said, we finished a Bubba Sparks EP that was in the works. Struggle Jennings, I know he was on here.
Yeah.
And we have a really fire ass project with him. I'm kind of part of a couple other projects with him that are coming out later on down the road, but just, you know, linking in with him and sitting with him in the studios for the first time after a lot of years. Me and him haven't connected in a long time, but, you know, behind the scenes, just realizing certain things we didn't even know about each other or how important I was in his musical decisions because I wasn't around as much. Made me feel really good. It was kind of like a lot of the same thing. And I didn't know that I had met him when he was working out at Kinko's as a kid. And, you know, like there's a lot of, I was just like, wow, I don't even remember that. He's like, but dude, you answered the phone, you know, and like you talked to me, like, and I didn't remember really. But because it was so long ago. But so that was a great thing. And of course my son's project, and he's got this band Bypass the Master, and that's just insanely good. You know, and we did this Bizarre and Be Real single and Bizarre and Cassidy single, and we got a whole album on him. And, you know, my thing is just trying to, you know, get involved with these legacy artists, I call them, and try to, you know, be involved with it and get Street Flavor back, you know, relevant again, get some streams out there, get people hearing the name again. And I think that we're managing to do that slowly again. I'm launching a new platform called Spindat, SPNDAT. And that platform was designed from what I see is happening to the music industry. Nobody is getting paid. And I have to say this, I'd want to say it on here if it's okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
The industry is in dire straits. You know, nobody's getting paid. Streaming is a dead venture. And I'm telling all these artists, I don't know what camera I'm supposed to look in, stop chasing streams. It's a dead end. Anybody who approaches you and says streaming or subscriptions, they're a dinosaur. The industry is changing. It's time to get paid. It's time to bring value back to the music industry. It's time to present a platform like Spindat that says, hey, look, stop chasing followers. Get fans. Fans spend money with you. Followers hate on you. Followers don't do nothing for you. You know, but if you sell oranges, why are you selling it for 0.001 cents when you can sell it on Spindat for 7 cents? You get 100,000 plays on my platform, you're getting $7,000. And that goes for a podcast too. You get 1 million streams on our platform, and you're getting $70,000
sold.
You're getting $70,000 on 1 million views. You know, and because we've been the victims and the beneficiaries of the music business for the last 30-something years, I've taken everything I hate about the current music industry, taken it out of my platform, and put all the things I love in it. It's designed. And I didn't do this so I could say, oh, I want to have the next Spotify. I did it because somebody has to have the courage to try to reprogram the mentality of the modern artist to say, hey, it's time to bring value back again. If the artist doesn't give their music value, no one else will. There's kids that are out here for $20 a month. You can listen to any artist you want 1 million times if you want to, and the artist doesn't get paid. Less than 10% of every artist on Spotify makes $1,000 a month. You know what I mean?
Insane.
So we also have a component in there that allows fans to have ownership in the artist's music. So keep that as this, you know, you're hearing this now. So you can release songs. Those songs go out everywhere to Spotify through our platform. but you can own a piece of any one of those songs that artist release, and their streams go into your wallet, and your wallet can see all the analytics just like the artist. So you start earning with your artist now. So you become a partner with them. And it's also, I have a whole thing called the DAT chain. It's all backed with a token. You can earn reward tokens for all the money that's done on the platform. And so now you're earning money.
This is the stock market.
Kind of, but it's not a securities. It's a utility token that earns money.
Right.
So, but the name of the game now is to really just figure out how to make the art. Without the content creators making money, there is no content. So you can keep playing the broke game if you guys want to. You know what I mean? That's why I tell artists, you can stay over here in broke land, I call it, which is streaming, or you can just charge for what it is you're providing. You know, stop being terrified to say, I need to get paid. Because if they're a fan, they will. My daughter goes to Starbucks every day and pays us $7 for a damn coffee, not because it's the best coffee in the world, just because Starbucks made you feel like that's the value they have and that's what they charge. So you do it, you know. So it's a new era. I think that this platform is really going to change the game. And I know people are going to come behind us and copy and do whatever, but I think we're going to be the first. And it has a social media component built into it, so you don't have to jump back and forth or talk to fans.
Is this live right now?
Oh, it's live. It's on Apple and Android right now. I just haven't told anybody yet.
You've always had that foresight, though. You know, it seems like through the history
Can
of
an
this,
Android download it?
You've always had that foresight of what's going to be hot later, what's going to be hot in the future, where are we going with this?
Yeah, that's the funny Lex and Bravo conversation when I took them to O'Charlie's there in Hermitage, and I was telling them, hey, man, you guys got like maybe a year, 2 years before CDs are dead. And they laughed at me. You know, like, I don't know what he's talking about. And Lex will talk about it. There's a couple times he's mentioned it, but he's like, yeah, he was right. A couple years later. And I feel like we're at that point again. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what we're doing with SpinDat is equally as important as when we went from cassette to CD. And when we went from CD to digital. And now we're going from digital to a platform like that we have. And I think it's equally as important. The name of the game moving forward is not how many followers you have. It's how much money you make per transaction. Because if an artist can wake up and say, I want to be an artist, and this platform, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. If I hustle again, it's just like CDs out the trunk. If you're broke back in the day, you put 1,000 CDs in the trunk, you can get 10 grand, right? But now you don't have that ability. Like it seems so helpless.
It does. I mean, I think that what we were talking about earlier was like, you got these TikTok rappers that are, I mean, piling up streams, a bunch of followers, but then they can't get anyone to back a full album. They can't sell seats at a venue. Yeah,
well, you got two artists. You got the ones that just want to be popular, and then you got ones that, you know, want their music to be heard, that the music has quality, and our platform is designed for artists who want to make money. That's all I can say. You know, if you want to make money, this is the type of platform you need. We don't need millions and millions of artists on here. We just want the artists who want to make money. And that's it. You know, it's on Apple, it's on Android. We're getting ready to kick off here next month. I've been in development with this idea since 1999.
Oh wow!
As far as conceptually, technology wasn't there. I tried it in 2000. I tried it in 2011, and I was just a little too ahead. And now technology is kind of lined up with me, and I'm able to put it together and deliver it the right way. And I really, really think it's going to be a game changer. And if I can get the artists to understand, you know, how they need to make money in the future, I think this will be the perfect spot. You know, so
I mean,
check that's it out. Just giving the game away.
Yeah, just laying it all out there.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for being here, dude.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, and again, I'm sorry it took me so long to get here.
No, I think it worked out how it should. And, I think from the first time you reached out, I think we've gotten better. Knowing that a possibility of sitting down with Sonny Paradise was a thing of trying. You know, you're continuing to make people better, and I just appreciate so much you taking the time to do this, dude.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, the Godfather of Nashville rap, Sonny Paradise.
Every time I try to get out, they pull me back.
Right. And if you do speak with Pistol, let him know he is our biggie. In Nashville, Tennessee, he is our biggie. Smalls.
And me and Pistol were close. We were tight, and I feel he started it all. You know, whatever legacy comes out of Street Flavor, it's because of him. Started with him, and you know, I think he probably gave us as much of a chance as we gave him, and you know, it's just a cool story. You know, so
any chance on a Street Flavor one night only reunion show ever happening
with
everybody?
I would love that.
Stack, Charlie.
We've talked about it a million times. I recently even had a conversation with Jelly briefly about, you know, remaking some old songs and having features on them and things like that. So, you know, I want to do a box set, you know, and I want to break it up the 90s, the 2010s to, you know, and I want to have every single project in there, you know, and I want to put it in the black box with the Street Flavor logo and, you know, sell it for like $300 or something and just have everything.
I'd buy
in
one
there.
today.
Yes.
You know, so,
Same.
yeah. Cool.
Man.
Do that.
Yeah, you should do that for sure. Do that.
So,
Do you need
know.
help boxing them up?
Yeah.
Well, you know, again, you know, like I said, it's this cool thing that's happening in the universe right now, or whatever you want to call it. But we're definitely people are talking, and for some reason, Street Flavor just seems to people are interested to hear, you know, how it all came to be, and you know the stories behind the stories. And again, I could sit here for 10 hours with you guys and go through this,
Right.
but we got through this one pretty easy. But you know, it's a lot to unpack.
No.
Well, if you didn't know, now you know. Street Flavor, Sonny Paradise, legends in the building, in front of the camera, behind the camera. Maybe you'll get to see that legend here coming up soon. If you loved what I loved today, check us out on all platforms, and please hit that like, share, and subscribe.
And for the love of Nashville, tune into the next one.